Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your girl KB. You know what I do, and you know why I do it. Today's reading is about self acceptance, and I'm hitting just for today, which is the Narcotics Anonymous reading. It says, when we accept ourselves, we can accept others into our lives unconditionally, probably for the first time. Man, I have a lot of people in my life that I deal with on a regular basis who are hyper vigilant in scanning their environments. And I know this is a result of trauma. And on some levels, I do it as well. And I don't know if it's so much related to trauma, although I did have a traumatic upbringing. I want to say it's related to an environment that is rooted in trauma. I'll put it like that. And most of it is normalized. So you don't know it's trauma, or you don't call it trauma. You just call it day-to-day living. Amen. Now, my formative years were spent in a house where there was domestic violence, and that's not talked about amongst my siblings. I think I'm the only one that speaks of it openly and freely. And then we grew up in an environment, of marginalized people, and we were considered middle class because we had, my mother had a pretty decent paying job, but it was still a one income household. Even though my father was present, he didn't contribute much. So, and he was the violent party, so we were always hyper vigilant and, scanning what's going to set him off. And so, I'm always scanning for what's going to balance things, what's going to make things right. I have a very good sense of, I want to say, justice and fair play. And, I get super aggressive when that is not in play. No, I'm not going to revisit trauma because people don't know how to act right. And in saying that and setting those definitive terms and tones, what you're doing is setting the stage for more trauma. I learn. I pay attention. I know my triggers. I will announce my triggers. I will remove myself when I feel like I'm getting upset because I don't want to be that person, which has probably nothing to do with this reading. Let me just get into the reading, amen? Just trigger some thought. It says, from our earliest memories, many of us felt like we never belonged. Well, I guess it did have something to do with the reading. No matter how big the gathering, we always felt apart from the crowd. We had a hard time fitting in. Deep down, we believed that if we really let others get to know us, they would reject us. Perhaps our addictions, or our trauma, or our desire to heal began to germinate in this climate of self-centeredness. Yeah. Now imagine a room full of other people who are self-centered. What that looks like and what that feels like. And maybe that's why you were on the fringe. Maybe that's why you were self-medicating. I began this video talking about how trauma is not talked about or trauma is normalized. And again, not talked about because it's the norm. Many of us hid the pain of our alienation from the attitude of defiance. In fact, we told the world, you don't need me, well, I don't need any of you either. I got my drugs and I can take care of myself. No, for me, it's I got my attitude and I can take care of myself. You know, I keep people at arm's distance because I don't want to bring them to my house or explain why they can't go to my house or why my mother has a black eye or why, there are welts on my leg. Uh, you know, nobody wants to have those kind of conversations. Deep down, we believe that if we really let others know us, they will reject us. Perhaps our addictions began to germinate in this climate of self-centeredness. Yeah, let's go back to that line. It's the self-centeredness that drives the disease. We're terminally unique. Nobody knows. Nobody else has experienced. And it's only when you learn to talk about the madness that you find out you are not alone. Many of us, and I know this because of the field that I work in, many of us, I hate telling my story over and over again. Well, you'll have to get certain things done over and over again until you reach that state where it no longer is an issue. You have to get a boil lanced. You have to get an abscess drained. Yeah, I'm using graphic terms, but that's basically what it is. It's an abscess on your life. And until that core is dealt with, we will have these repeated procedures. Amen and amen. It says the further our addiction or our need for healing progressed, the higher the walls we built around ourselves. Like I said, I have too many friends who have these walls up. I was blessed enough to, have entrance and exit to the fortress. But at the same time, I know that, the things that they need are being kept out based on these, I don't say not wanting to because it's an unconscious thing or subconscious thing, not unconscious, a subconscious thing that folks don't want. I'm sure they want to be better. And by better, I mean clear, rational thinking and relieved of the repeated visions or the repeated visitations to trauma. I'm sure they want relief from that. The thing is that, again, we normalize certain things and we become familiar with it, and then we wonder, what do we do with that free time once it's gone? I hate telling my story, but, if I don't repeat it, I repeat the outcomes of it. And all I can think of in this situation is the man at the pool of Bethesda. I want relief, but I don't have the capacity to do any kind of physical action to relieve my suffering. I don't have that capacity. Until Jesus comes by and asks that question, do you want to be healed? And then the only physical act required is a confession of that. Amen. That's an action, folks. I hate telling my story, but that's an action. It's an action toward change. Amen. Think about that as you go through your day. What actions are you taking to make change?